terrifying discovery, woman's headache unveils sinister, hidden horror that haunts doctors. Claire's world had always been a tapestry of relentless routine, but that morning, as she sat at her kitchen table, the flickering light overhead cast ominous shadows. The headache gripped her with vice-like ferocity, leaving her nauseated and on edge. It pulsed through her skull, a cruel reminder that she was slipping into darkness. The cheerful clatter of her children playing in the next room felt like a distant echo. What if? The thought flickered a jarring panic that made her skin crawl. Had she become another statistic, just a few steps from disaster? Weeks rolled on, each day marked by the dulling ache that stole her focus and stripped her of the joys she once cherished. The neighborhood hummed with life, kids rode bikes, neighbors chatted with tailored smiles, but all Claire sensed was an undercurrent of malevolence lurking just beyond view. She tried to shake off the sensation as fatigue, but the whispers grew louder with every visit to the community clinic. Stress, they said. Just take it easy, Claire. Each word dripped with condescension, fueling an ember of panic deep inside her. And then, it happened. An ordinary stroll through the neighborhood took a horrifying turn. As she passed a group of women jostling between manicured lawns, she caught snippets of hushed tones. Did you hear she just vanished? Exactly like the others. Claire halted in her tracks. The chilled air wrapped around her, prickling her skin like 1,000 needles. Several women had disappeared after visiting her clinic. The weight of realization crashed down on her. Were they victims of something sinister? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Adrenaline surged through her veins as curiosity wrestled with dread. She needed answers. It was then she stumbled across the local historian, a wiry man with sunken cheeks and wild hair. His eyes flared with urgency. They say the clinic's been hiding its past, a dark history woven with malpractice, he whispered, each word laced with danger. An old fire flickered in her chest. Clutching her breath, Claire barely contained the fear racing through her as he recounted tales of unsettling experiments, of women entrapped in a web spun by deceit. Reality began to twist. The town felt transformed, every smiling face warped into a ghostly mask. The friendly neighbor who'd always seemed too eager to help now sent shivers racing down her spine during an unexpected midnight encounter. Claire's heart raced. Every creak of the floorboard seemed amplified in their darkened house, shadows shifting like silhouettes creeping closer in the stillness of night. Barely holding on to sanity, she sprinted deeper into her investigation, grabbing threads of hope that seemed to fray just as quickly. The ache in her head had now woven itself into her very being. Panic clawed at her throat. It wasn't just a headache anymore, it was a grotesque spiral into paranoia. The chase had begun. Footsteps echoed behind her as she tore down the familiar streets that now felt alien. Did she have the strength to face what awaited her in the pitch-black abyss of truth? Or would it swallow her whole? As she rounded a corner, breathless and terrified, the darkness beckoned, whispering dire consequences that could threaten everything she held dear. The darkness pressed down on Claire as she ran. Her limbs felt heavy, each step a battle against unseen forces clawing at her sanity. The shadows stretched long, flickering ominously in the dying light. She could almost hear the whispers again, a cacophony of hushed voices, like echoes of a forgotten past that sought her out. Her pulse raced, a frantic drum in the silence of dusk. Each breath felt labored, constricting like a vice around her chest. It was more than a headache now, it was a noose tightening around her mind. She glanced back, expecting to see figures lurking in the shadows, but there was nothing, just the stillness that dripped with malevolence. That historian's words replayed relentlessly in her brain: malpractice, women entrapped, were they truly victims of a monstrous deceit? Rage mixed with fear, fueling her sprint. She turned the corner into a narrow alley behind the clinic the way she'd passed so many times before. Now, it felt like an entry to a realm of nightmares. The alley smelled of decay, damp wood, and something metallic that sent a jolt through her veins. Claire hesitated. Could she go further? The urge to flee clawed within her, but the nagging ache in her temple urged her onward. With every ounce of courage, she pressed deeper into the darkness, her breath hitching as she neared the back entrance of the clinic. The door shuddered on its hinges as she pushed it open, the creaking sound like a warning bell in the stillness. Inside, the hallway stretched out, lined with outdated posters still touting miracle cures and glowing recommendations. A flickering fluorescent light buzzed overhead, casting shadows that seemed to dance mockingly. Something caught her eye, a door slightly ajar at the end of the hall. Without thinking, she moved toward it, driven by an instinct sharper than the pain coursing through her. What lay inside? A revelation? A confrontation? As she reached for the handle, a dull thud echoed through the clinic's corridor. A pang of ice shot through her gut. Was she truly alone? Heart pounding, she paused, listening intently. The air felt charged, vibrating with an electric tension that coiled tightly around her. She pushed the door open slowly, the hinges protesting with a low groan. Inside, the room was cluttered, the air thick with must and something sour. Papers lay strewn across the floor, and medical equipment was strewn in disarray. It looked as if a struggle had taken place. Panic stole her breath as she stepped further in, her foot crunching on something brittle. Glancing down, a frozen sense of horror gripped her. It was a photograph, partially torn, but the faces were familiar. Were they not just missing? Claire's gaze locked onto her own smiling face at the center of the torn photograph. Strange. She didn't remember being there. The floor creaked behind her. She turned, the blood draining from her face as the door slammed shut, plunging her into darkness. She pounded on it, a wave of screams building in her throat, but the sound was swallowed by the walls. Desperation surged as she searched for a way out. You shouldn't have come here, a voice hissed from the shadows, icy and predatory. The darkness glimmered with unseen eyes, and Claire's heart raced with a new kind of terror. She was not alone. The impending dread clawed at her as she realized she was smack in the middle of whatever horror had befallen the past victims. Her mind raced. Was this the fate that awaited her too? Just then, a light flickered on a nightstand, flickering against the oppressive darkness, revealing the outline of a figure. Could she trust what would come next? The confrontation loomed, and everything hung in the balance as the figure drew closer. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but she was pinned by fear and twisted fate. Would she uncover the horrifying truth, or would darkness consume her completely? Claire's heart thundered in her ears, each beat echoing the primal need to escape. As the figure stepped into the feeble light, her body tensed, every muscle poised for flight. He was older, with wild hair and eyes that danced with manic energy. You're curious, aren't you? He sneered, a twisted smile warping his pale face. To her horror, Claire recognized him. He was the very historian who had spoken to her earlier. Why are you here? She stammered, her voice cracking like dry twigs. Somehow, through the haze of fear and confusion, she managed to keep her gaze locked on his eyes, searching for answers. But his face twisted, the madness in him spilling like ink. This place, it's alive, he whispered, stepping forward. And it knows you, Claire. It knows all of you. The words coiled around her, suffocating. She wanted to scream, to run, but she felt anchored to the spot, ensnared by his gaze. What do you mean? What does it want? His laughter echoed, a jarring sound that rattled her bones. What does it want? It wants to feed. It hungers for your pain, your fear. Those smiles you saw, they were the last moments of those you didn't save. Would you have saved them if you'd known? Cold dread solidified in her gut. Stop. Where are the others? Where's everyone? Suddenly, shadows flickered at the edges of her vision. Shapes emerged, their faces contorted in agony, eyes wide and pleading. They were the women, the ones she had seen in the photos, wrenched from reality, their cries silenced by an invisible grip. Each trapped soul echoed the weight of their sorrows, converging on her. No. Please, no. Claire recoiled, her back hitting the wall. The pressure of their despair pushed against her, each breath a struggle against the rising tide of horror. The historian leaned in closer, his voice now a sickly whisper. They're here, Claire. Waiting for you to join them. At that moment, the air thickened, pulsing with an almost tangible essence. The walls around her seemed to quiver, alive and hungry, as if they craved to swallow her whole. She had inadvertently stepped into a nightmare where every secret had a price. Desperation surged. She had to escape. Summoning all her strength, she lunged toward the door, pounding her fists against it. Let me out. Let me out. But the wood felt strangely solid, unmoving, as if mocking her desire for freedom. Leave. The historian's laughter filled the room, ricocheting like a slap. You think you can escape the darkness? You are part of it now. Suddenly, a loud crash reverberated from the far side of the room, pulling her attention away. The noise sent a tremor through her body, paralyzing her. An object, a table, had toppled over, scattering dust and debris. The figure shifted, momentarily distracted, revealing a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. Seizing the chance, Claire hurled herself against the door again, desperate and wild. Just as it began to give way, she caught a glimpse of flickering movement behind the historian. Something was rising, looming, flickering in and out of sight. A chill washed over her as she caught a fleeting image, a face twisted in anguish. Panic surged through her veins. What was happening? What awaited her on the other side? Join them or run, it's your choice, he taunted, but even he seemed shaken by the unknown energy that stirred behind him. As the door cracked open, Claire's heart raced with the promise of escape, but dread stabbed at her with each millisecond wasted. Shadows swirled, and she could taste the rancid air thick with despair. With one final shove, Claire burst through, her body colliding with freedom. But the moment tasted bitter, the shadows nipping at her heels, whispering promises of a dark reunion. The hallway seemed endless, each step pulling her back toward the clinic, toward the secrets it held. Would the truth lead her to safety, or would it drag her deeper into horror's helpless embrace? As she raced away, a haunting whisper trailed behind her, you can't run from what you are, you belong to it now. What lay ahead in the shadows? Another revelation, or the depths of her own unraveling. Claire stumbled into the dimly lit hallway, her breath coming in frantic gasps. The door she had just burst through slammed behind her, but the thud seemed to echo with a haunting finality. Shadows swayed along the walls, twisting into grotesque shapes as if they were alive, eager to claim her. Each step felt like walking through thick mud, her legs heavy with fear and exhaustion. Keep moving, just keep moving, she muttered under her breath, her own voice a weak incantation against the darkness. With every corner she turned, the weight of unseen eyes pressed down on her from the dimly lit corners. A flicker of light caught her eye. Up ahead, a window, its glass cracked and dusted with debris, offered a glimpse of the night beyond. It beckoned her, but as she approached, the shadows seemed to thicken, swirling dangerously around her like a whirlpool. Just then, a soft, almost melodic whisper cut through the tension. Help us, Claire. The voice fluttered through the air like a dying moth, and she froze. Had she truly heard it, or was the madness at the edge of her mind playing tricks? Who? She swallowed hard, dread coating her throat like thick smoke. Who are you? Remember, the voice implored, lingering in the air like the touch of a ghost. You can save us. A pulse of anguish surged through her. She felt a shift in the air as images cascaded into her mind, flashes of faces she couldn't recognize, their mouths moving in silent screams. They reached for her, their eyes wide in terror. In that moment, Claire knew they were trapped, just like her, bound to the very walls of this cursed place. Terror ignited inside her, flaring bright and desperate. Where are you? I'll find you. But the response was lost, swallowed by the pulsing silence of the hall. With newfound determination, she pivoted, seeking another doorway, another chance for an escape. The hall was a maze, twisting, turning, mocking her attempts to flee. Every flickering light seemed to pulse with life, beckoning her closer only to pull her deeper into the darkness. The walls pulsed as if they were breathing around her, each breath a reminder that something monstrous lurked just behind the veil of shadow. She had the sense that the very building held memories, wrongs that it had absorbed and now wanted to unleash. Claire, the whisper returned, now layered over with despair. Don't let it take you. What did it mean? Was she too late? She pressed on, each footfall a desperate quest for the exit, the reek of something rotten filling her nostrils. The hallway lengthened and twisted, time losing meaning. Panic clawed at her as she stumbled upon another door. Just before she could reach for the knob, the historian's sinister laughter echoed through the corridor, chilling her to the bone. Don't you see? You can't escape your destiny. You're part of this place now. With a fierce determination, she flung open the door, pushing through to find herself in a large, dust-choked room. The air was thick with the scent of decay, the floor littered with memories discarded. It looked like a storage area, items strewn everywhere, old medical equipment, tattered patient files, and splashes of dried blood that seemed to mirror the chaos inside her head. That eye in the far corner, something moved. Heart racing, Claire squinted into the darkness, a wave of dread washing over her. From the shadows, a figure emerged, a woman, disheveled and gaunt, her hair matted against her skull. Help me, she croaked, reaching out with trembling hands. You have to find the others before it's too late. Claire's pulse quickened. Could she trust this woman, or was she just another illusion designed to entrap her? But behind the figure, the shadows writhed. They danced, growing in number and strength, weaving a tapestry of terror and despair. Time was running out as Claire stepped forward, the ground beneath her shook. Something awakened within the walls, hungry and malevolent. With a frantic gasp, she glanced back toward the doorway. It was too late to run. Join us. A chorus of whispers flooded the room, chilling her to the bone, or suffer the consequences. Claire took a deep breath, heart pounding. Would she fight to save herself and the trapped souls, or be consumed by the horror surrounding her? What was waiting in that darkness beyond was far more than she had ever imagined. The woman's eyes were wide with fear, pleading. Claire hesitated, torn between helping this lost soul and the instinct to flee. The shadows grew thicker, creeping along the walls, stretching toward her like dark tendrils searching for prey. Please, the woman's voice cracked, barely above a whisper. They want to let you go. You don't understand the others, the ones before us. They all thought they could escape. Claire felt a chill race down her spine. The heavy air felt charged with unresolved pain, each breath a struggle against the oppressive atmosphere. What happened to them? She demanded, her voice shaking. They were taken, the woman replied, her voice trembling. She gestured behind her, into the suffocating darkness. We are the remnants of their failure. If you don't hurry, if you don't find the others, you'll join us. Forever. The shadows around them pulsed, greedy for any sign of weakness. Claire could feel their hunger, a vile sensation crawling at her skin. She glanced back at the door she had just passed through, its edges now darkened and forbidding. Could she really turn back? Who are they? Who is taking us? Claire pressed, her pulse quickening as an unseen force clawed at her sanity. They are the ones who linger, the woman said with a distant look, her hands trembling. The tortured souls that feed this place. They won't rest until they have you. A scraping sound erupted from the back of the room, breaking Claire's focus. Her heart raced as she turned toward the noise. From the shadows, another figure emerged. This one was tall, its limbs too long, body too thin. It jerked unnaturally, almost as if it were a broken puppet. Claire staggered back, nearly colliding with the woman. It's here. You need to run. The woman shouted, panic seeping into her voice, but before Claire could move, the figure was upon them, its face obscured by a cloak of darkness. It spoke, voice disjointed and twisted, echoing with the loss of countless lives. You can't escape what you are. You belong in the shadows. Without thinking, Claire lunged for the exit, pushing past the woman. The door loomed only a few steps away, but the ground began to tremble violently beneath her feet. The walls seemed to close in, the shadows shrieked in delight, and the very air thickened, becoming almost solid. Claire! The woman's voice echoed, filled with despair, then suddenly cut off. Fear thundered in Claire's chest. She couldn't look back, the darkness behind would surely consume her if she paused even for a moment. The door swung open mere inches from her grasp, but the moment she crossed the threshold, a freezing grip closed around her wrist. She wrenched her arm free, but the shadows screamed, writhing like a living nightmare, tugging at her. "Don't go!" A multitude of voices wailed in unison, churning the air into chaos. "You have to save us!" Each word felt like a blade digging deeper into her psyche as she fought her way forward, stumbling into yet another hallway, this one devoid of light, a deep, endless darkness that stretched before her. The walls pressed closer, and she felt a deep-seated dread, the very building seemed intent on swallowing her whole. "What am I supposed to do?" She shouted into the void, the emptiness swallowing her cries. The answer came as a hissing whisper against her ear: "Find the heart of this cursed place, or be consumed." At that moment, Claire's resolve hardened. She couldn't simply flee. If she left the woman behind and the lost souls to their fate, she would never find peace. Taking a deep breath, she steeled herself, determined to uncover the truth behind this torment, but as she moved deeper into the rising darkness, she felt a tremor beneath her feet once more. The labyrinth unfurled before her like an unwelcome host, and the shadows coiled tighter around her ankles. "Who's waiting for me?" Claire thought, dread mixing with determination. "What will I find in the heart of this horror?" The whispers grew furious, a menacing promise of revelation and doom hanging in the air, waiting for her to uncover. Was she ready to confront whatever lay ahead? Claire's breath quickened as she pressed further into the abyss. The barely there whispers surged like a furious sea, drowning out her thoughts. They coiled around her mind, each syllable thick with despair, begging for salvation that seemed eternally out of reach. She took a step, legs trembling. The shadows around her transformed, shifting like liquid smoke, and suddenly, she was not alone. Dark forms materialized at the periphery of her vision, moving just beyond her sight. With every flicker of movement, her heart hammered harder against her ribcage, the beat resounding in her ears like a warning drum. "Find the heart," the voice echoed again, this time louder, harsher, commanding. "It knows. It waits." An unseen hand gripped at her throat, tightening like a vice, pulling her deeper into the oppressive darkness. Panic surged, driving her forward. She stumbled into a narrow corridor lined with walls that seemed to pulsate alive with some ancient, hungry pulse. The very structure suffocated her, closing in with every breath. A flicker of light danced ahead. Claire's heart leaped. Hope ignited, though it was brittle, like dry leaves poised to catch fire. She dashed toward it, the warmth fighting against the chill that threatened to swallow her whole. As she reached the light, a single door appeared. Ancient and heavy, it bore marks of struggle, scratches and grooves carved deep, echoes of frantic attempts to escape. The energy around it felt alive, humming with sinister promise and unholy urgency. Claire grasped the handle, but a cold sweat dripped from her brow. She could feel the weight of countless eyes pressing in from the shadows, watching, waiting. No turning back now. She turned the handle and pushed, the door creaking open like the moan of tormented souls. Inside, the air turned electric, the light sharper, revealing an ornate room unlike anything she had seen. Blood-red walls, splattered in drawings that writhed and twisted, tugged at her mind like a siren's call. A circle in the center glowed ominously, pulsating with the rhythm of a heartbeat. Was this it? The heart of the cursed place? Suddenly, the atmosphere thickened. Claire's heart plummeted as shadows clawed at the edges of her perception, creeping into her sanctuary. They twisted and transformed, embodying figures from her nightmares, faces familiar yet grotesque, mouths silently screaming her name. "Join us, Claire, join us." The chorus of tortured souls vibrated through her flesh, a chilling harmony that froze her bones. Claire staggered back, the pull of the circle magnifying her fear. It felt like a trap, an abyss beckoning with promises of knowledge buried deep beneath layers of torment. She felt herself being drawn closer, feet dragging, a magnetic dance toward the darkness that loomed beyond the light. No! Claire screamed, ripping her gaze from the circle, forcing herself to take a step back. I'm not like you. But the shadows lunged, a wave crashing against her resolve. They wrapped around her, whispering secrets, filling her head with images. Past souls, feeble and desperate, brushing against her spirit, each touch burrowing deeper into the cracks of her mental barriers. The intensity swelled, tightening like a noose. The ground tremored again, each pulse reverberating through Claire's body as she felt the urgency grow. The heart of this realm was calling, and she was its unwitting chosen vessel. With a primal scream, she yanked herself free, slamming the door shut behind her. The whispers erupted into a cacophony of rage. You can't escape. You will find us. She turned, heart racing again as she faced the narrowing corridor, now darker and more foreboding. What haunted her next would decide whether she lived or joined the whispers forever. Where do I go? She shouted into the depths, her voice trembling. Silence roared back, the anticipation heavy, clenching like a fist around her throat. In that moment of darkness, she felt it a chill creeping in, almost like a breath on her neck, whispering the truth she dreaded. Save them or become one of us, Claire. Inhaled sharply. The choice loomed closer than the shadows. And as she braced herself, a distant echo caught her ear, a faint laughter intermingled with the cries of the long-lost. Who are you waiting for me? The answer hovered right before her, lurking just out of sight, ready to offer either salvation or doom. Claire gasped, her breath blurring into the cold air as she stumbled back from the door. The shadows pressed in tighter, swirling around her like a suffocating fog. They whispered, hissing her name with a sickening glee that twisted her stomach into knots. Claire, you are ours. The voices dripped with eerie familiarity, cutting through her will like a knife. She shut her eyes, but the darkness folded in, creeping beneath her eyelids, filling her mind with images of despair. Faces. Screams. Countless souls reaching for her, clawing at her sanity. Stop. Just stop. She shouted, a desperate plea echoing around her, swallowed by the abyss. With a surge of adrenaline, she turned abruptly, racing down the narrow tunnel. The walls seemed to close in with her every step, tight as if they wanted to crush her beneath their weight. She tore down the corridor like a wild animal, the chill behind her growing, angry, ravenous. Suddenly, the ground shifted beneath her. Claire stumbled, nearly toppling to the floor as a violent tremor rippled through the air. She pressed against the wall, her heart a wild drum, urging her to move. Find the heart, the voice taunted, echoing through the space. It sent ice coursing through her veins as it resonated like a chant leading her deeper into despair. The corridor twisted and turned, losing its shape. Up ahead, another light flickered. She ran towards it, her pulse quickening. It was a doorway, solid and inviting, glowing with a golden light that shimmered like the promise of safety. Throwing herself against the door, she couldn't care less if it was the right choice. The handle was cool to the touch as she twisted it. Bursting through, she was met with another room, a larger chamber, and this time, the decor was even more grotesque. Mirrored reflections lined the walls, distorting her image into monstrous forms that snickered and sneered back at her 100 versions of herself, each one darker, stripped of humanity. Stepping back in horror, Claire stumbled upon a cold stone altar drenched in shadows. At its center simmered a dark liquid, its surface undulating mysteriously. You must feed it, a whisper crawled over her skin. No. Claire choked out, shaking her head violently. The room felt alive, the whispers thickening into a chorus that resonated through her chest. Join us, Claire, join us. Hot bile rose in her throat as memories flooded back. The faces of friends, of loved ones lost to time, caught in her mind like moths drawn to a flame. Each one begging for comfort, trapped within a cold void just like the echoes around her. Help them! She screamed, smashing her palms against the altar. The surface burned beneath her touch, but she refused to lift them away. Become one of us. The voices grew louder, feeding off her fear, pushing her to make a choice. No. She slammed her eyes shut, digging her nails into her palms, fighting the pull surging through her. The altar shuddered, the dark liquid bubbling violently, rippling with rage, almost alive. Suddenly, a shape peeled away from the wall, a silhouette emerging from the shadows. It was a person, no, something between a person and a nightmare. Claire's breath caught in her throat as it advanced toward her with a predator's grace, eyes glinting with hunger. Save them, Clair, it whispered silkily, every word a dagger. Or join us in anguish. The choice echoed in her mind, shrieking like the shadows around her. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't think. Make your decision. With a rush that flooded her with icy dread, Clair felt time slipping through her fingers. She had to act, but what if the choice she made sealed her fate forever? What will you do? The figure smiled, revealing teeth sharper than any she'd ever seen. In that moment, Clair faced the unbearable truth: salvation could come at a price, and that cost might be higher than she was willing to pay. With dread cloaking her like a second skin, she realized the heart was closer than ever, but so was the darkness. Her next move would decide everything. And then she heard it, a faint whisper. Threading through the air, wrapping around her heart. Join us. As fear clawed at her insides, Claire's gaze drifted down to the altar. It was still bubbling, still waiting. What happens if I don't? She breathed, heart racing. The answer loomed before her in the silence. The silence hung thick, like a heavy fog, pressing in on Claire's senses. Every heartbeat echoed in her ears, a frantic thrum that told her the darkness was close. She could feel the stare of the shadowy figure, its eyes boring into her soul, urging her to make a choice. Join us. The whisper grew softer, almost seductive. It wrapped around her like a warm blanket, a deceptive comfort in the nightmare. Claire's thoughts raced. What happens if I don't? The question slipped from her lips, laced with dread. She needed to know. She needed to understand the scope of this horror unfolding before her. The figure leaned closer, its breath a chilling caress. If you don't, there will be consequences. Not just for you, but for those you love. Its sharp smile widened, revealing a mouth full of jagged teeth, glistening in the dim light. Frantically, Clair thought of her friends, her family faces that seemed a world away. Each one was tethered to her, fragile threads that could be severed at any moment. She couldn't risk that. What do I have to do? She whispered, the weight of her decision heavy in the air. The figure straightened, disappearing into shadows, its voice echoing from nowhere and everywhere. Feed it your pain, the altar demands it. Only then can you understand the true heart of this place. The dark liquid bubbled with a grotesque enthusiasm, responding to her inner turmoil. Clair could feel it beckoning her, pulling at the frayed edges of her will. She took a tentative step back, her skin crawling as she stared at the altar, its malevolent energy swirling like a storm. Feel the anguish of their loss, Clair, the figure commanded, its presence palpable. Let it fill you, let it become part of you. Only then can you truly save them. A spike of rage shot through her. This isn't the way. I won't sacrifice my pain for your twisted games. Is that really your choice? The figure's voice slithered through the chamber, playful yet sinister. The mirrors surrounding her began to tremble, the grotesque reflections shifting wildly like trapped souls thrashing against glass. Suddenly, the room was filled with screams, her friends' voices, twisted and echoing, merging into a cacophony of despair. It was deafening, sending her stumbling back. She clutched her head, desperately trying to drown them out, but their cries became louder than her own thoughts, more real than the grotesque altar. Could she really lie to herself that this nightmare was just a figment of her imagination? Maybe this was the nightmare she had to endure. Maybe she was already lost. Then a memory pierced through the warmth of laughter, the light in their eyes, everything she had fought to keep. And suddenly, it became clear what she truly valued. "I will not let you take them," Claire shouted, lifting her gaze. The shadows flickered, momentarily quieting the screams that surrounded her. In that brief moment of solace, she felt the weight of the glaring eyes behind her, the towering figure scrutinizing her resolve. "Then perhaps it is time to meet your own heart," it hissed. "You cannot avoid your scars. You must embrace them." Before Claire could answer, the dark liquid erupted violently, spilling over the altar's edge like a black tide. She stumbled back, barely avoiding the seeping flood that pooled towards her. The darkness became a tangible force, reaching out for her, pulling at the threads of her sanity. In a panic, she turned to run, but the shadows coiled around her, slowing her down, dragging her back toward the altar. Breathless, she screamed, "Let me go!" But her voice was swallowed by the encroaching darkness, merging into the haunting arena of her memories. She felt the panic rise like a tide within her. What if she was meant to stay? What if she couldn't escape? In a sudden flash, her decision crystallized. She could fight. Claire planted her feet, drawing a deep breath, channeling every ounce of love and strength she had for those she cared about. If the entity wanted her pain, she would give it something more. "Release them!" she shouted, her voice a defiant roar. "I refuse to trade my love for despair." And as she stood her ground, the altar trembled violently. The voice beckoned back, drenched in contempt, "Then you'll find love isn't enough to conquer shadows." With that, the shadows converged, the darkness closing in, but she felt a spark within. What was she willing to sacrifice? The altar was throbbing, alive, a dark promise flickering at the edges of her vision. Could she take that leap? The weight of her choice hung thick in the air, a tension threaded with uncertain hope. And then, a chilling realization washed over her. What if the heart was not found in sacrifice, but in confronting true fear? The shadows tightened around her as Claire readied herself for the looming unknown. What awaited her at the heart of darkness? The shadows surged forward, enveloping her in a chilling embrace that felt alive, almost sentient. Claire's heart raced as she fought against the suffocating darkness, every breath growing heavier, tasting of despair. The whispers intensified, scoffing at her defiance, echoing the horrors she desperately tried to shake off. "Love? Ha! Love will be your doom," they sneered, a symphony of sinister voices oozing madness. With every ounce of strength she could muster, Claire pushed against the shadows, envisioning her friends Mark, Lila, Jacob faces bright with life. She thought of their laughter, and the bitterness of loss clawed at her throat. "I won't lose them." She yelled into the void, igniting a fire deep within. The shadows hesitated, quivering almost as if her words struck a nerve. But then they charged, wild and relentless, threatening to consume her whole. Claire locked her knees, grounding herself as she clutched her chest, the heartbeat of the world around her growing louder, a drum echoing the cries of her friends. As the darkness roared, the altar pulsed in response, each throb vibrating like a scream of its own. Tendrils of black liquid slithered toward her, coiling like snakes eager to strike. Without thinking, she grabbed a shard from the shattered mirror nearby. The glint caught her eye, a violent reflection of her own terror. "Get away from me!" she shrieked, hurling the shard towards the altar. It struck the dark surface and shattered into a cascade of fragments, sending shockwaves that rippled through the darkness. For a moment, the shadows recoiled, as if recognizing her resistance. Then, through the chaos, a voice emerged clear and precise, cutting through the din. "Embrace it, Claire. Your pain can become your weapon." It was the figure, emerging from the gloom, a mocking grin spreading across its ghastly visage. "Do you feel the call of your scars?" She faltered, memories flooding her mind, everything she had tried to bury, the grief, the guilt, the anger. Raw feelings surged, a dangerous wave that both terrified and empowered her. "No!" Claire screamed, shaking her head violently. "I won't become you." The figure's expression shifted to rage, shadows flickering dangerously like fire. "You think you can reject your own truth? Pain and suffering are the only keys to salvation." In a moment of clarity, she remembered advice from an old friend, true strength comes from facing the darkness, not running from it. Maybe she wasn't meant to conquer the shadows, maybe she needed to confront them. Fine, Claire breathed, her voice steady with determination. If I must feel pain to survive, then I will confront it head-on. The ground trembled beneath her, and the shadows erupted as they rushed back toward her. Instead of clenching in fear, she opened her arms wide, letting the dark energy wash over her, letting it grip her. As it met her heart, she channeled every sorrow, every ounce of fear into one decisive scream that echoed off the chamber walls, and then, silenced at eye and the stillness, Claire felt the shadows pause, an electric tension filling the air awaiting breath. A possibility bloomed in the oppressive darkness, one she hadn't expected. Now, you're embracing your heart, the figure hissed, its tone shifting, almost impressed. Let us discover how deep this darkness truly goes. But then it happened, a crack in reality opened behind the altar. The shadows churned with frantic energy, pulling her closer, closer still. A swirling vortex materialized, revealing not just darkness, but a glimpse of past horrors, faces lost in anguish, the echoes of her friends calling out, desperately reaching for her. As she felt herself being drawn into that abyss, Claire clung tightly to the remnants of her strength. What lay beyond that portal? Was it salvation, or something worse? Let me go. She shouted, but it was too late. The pull of the void was too strong. What awaited her on the other side? Would confronting the heart of this darkness cost her everything? Only one way to find out. The darkness erupted around Claire as she was pulled into the void, a swirling mass of memory and loss crushing in on all sides. The air grew thick, almost liquid, suffocating. Yet, deep inside, a flicker of resolve ignited, a promise to find the truth and those lost souls depending on her. Claire. The distant voice echoed, desperate and familiar. Mark. The realization sent adrenaline coursing through her veins. She had to fight. Mark. She cried, voice breaking as she reached out into the swirling abyss. Images flashed before her eyes, fragments of laughter, joy, and light. Each one felt like a tether, pulling her back to the surface, back to reality. Then the shadows shifted, reshaping into a corridor lined with their faces, long-lost friends, their expressions twisted in ecstasy and despair. Join us, stay with us. They called out, their voices melding into a haunting symphony. No. Claire screamed, shaking her head. I won't become a part of this nightmare. She pressed forward, fighting against the pull of the darkness. With every step, the memories of what they shared fed into her strength. She could remember the warmth of their smiles and the sound of their laughter. It was potent, like fuel for her spirit. The vortex began to crackle with energy, as if sensing her defiance. You think those facets of happiness can withstand the horror? The shadowy figure taunted, weaving through the chaos with sinister grace. Let the darkness consume you, let go of their past. Claire squeezed her eyes shut, refusing to succumb to its taunts, to let the hurt pull her down. With a steady breath, she recalled a moment with each of them: Mark's unwavering support, Lila's exuberant spirit, Jacob's comforting smile. They were all worth fighting for. Your pain is your power, Claire. The voice echoed again, growing stronger. And in that moment, she embraced the weight of her sorrow, holding it like a blade. I choose to remember. I choose love over fear. She declared into the void, her voice now a resonant roar. Light erupted from her heart, piercing through the darkness. The edges of the shadows wailed, shrieking as they recoiled from her newfound strength. Claire pushed further, the light amplifying with every beat of her heart, illuminating the memories tethered to her. Then the crack in the realm expanded, distorting the images of suffering and sorrow into brilliant scenes of joy and camaraderie. The faces of her friends emerged, clearer than ever. Claire! They cried, mirroring her determination. You can rescue us. With one final push, she lunged toward the heart of the vortex. It exploded into a cascade of light and shadow, ripping apart the fabric of darkness. Laughter filled the air, drowning out the whispers as she found herself standing in a strange void, pulse racing that eye in front of her. The shadows darkened and twisted, but now they exuded an almost desperate energy. "You cannot break free!" they cried, the cacophony drowning the void. Claire stood steady, heart pounding like thunder. "I can, and I will," she said, channeling the love she felt, pouring it into the light emanating from within her. "You cannot own what you have not taken. Your hold on us ends now." As she released the torrent of raw emotion, the shadows broke apart, shrieking in thin air. The warmth of light enveloped her, and she felt the weight of her friends rise from the void, their spirits entwined within the brilliance of her heart. The vortex began to collapse, and in a kaleidoscope of fears and joys, Claire emerged on the other side, a gust of pure air filling her lungs as reality warped back into form. She gasped, the familiar scent of her kitchen grounding her. Sunlight streamed through the windows, spilling across the table where they had shared countless memories. And yet, her heart raced as dread clawed at her insides. "Mark," she whispered, stepping hastily toward where she felt his presence. Lila's laughter, Jacob's teasing smile, they were all there, alive. And then the weight of horror washed over her, a revelation that she had breached the veil and freed them from their torment. They were back, but the shadows had left their mark. Claire. Mark stepped forward, eyes filled with concern and gratitude. "You did it. You brought us back." Claire nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. Their presence felt whole, the shadows hold broken, but the air shifted. "Not yet. The darkness lingers," a disembodied voice whispering from the corners of the room. They stood together, knowing the fight wasn't over. The shadows had scattered, but remnants of them lay ahead, an ever-present reminder of the pain they had transcended. Together, they would face that darkness, united, stronger than fear. As the sun cast warm beams through the window, they each grasped hands, a united front against whatever lingered in their way. This was their new beginning, a tapestry of love woven through shadows, a promise forged in darkness, resolute against despair. You need to subscribe now to our channel. Don't miss any of the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and keep the thrill alive. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this unexpected conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience Claire's journey.